Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. We're zoomed in today on YouTube. Zoomed in, everybody. See our faces very closely. Hello everyone. How you doing, Callow? What's up?
Not much. Day two of running in this heat. It's not fun. Still trying to cool
Yeah.
down. So,
Yeah. It is hot girl summer in this joint. Oh man. They're not messing around this year. I don't know. When's it going away? Later this week? It's gonna get normal again,
supposed to get
maybe?
like semi normal on Friday, Saturday, but like that's still high 80s.
Like we had all the crazy rain when it wasn't 100 degrees. Typically, when we have this, we have the crazy rainstorm, and then it all goes away.
Right. No.
I'll have to talk to my man camera, find out what in the world's going on here, figure it
Right.
all out. All
Exactly.
right. Speaking of News 4, I got to watch them today because guess what, guys? The threat of taking the RFK deal out of the DC budget has come to pass if it is up to the chairman of the DC City Council. Now, this one again, I need Tom Sherwood or somebody, Eric Flack, Mark Seagrave, somebody, because what was it, a week ago? Mark Seagraves reported that the DC City Council wanted to do this. They denied they were doing this. They said they weren't taking the money out of the budget to basically approve the deal. So as I read it, actually, both things are somewhat true. Phil Mendelson is saying the money is still in the budget for approval if the deal is approved. However, they want to take the deal points out of the budget to approve that. So, question one would be this then to the chairman, because I don't understand how that works. How would you approve a budget that allocates money for a stadium project over the next couple of years, and it's a lot of money, without having approved the stadium deal? So doesn't that hold up the budget? Right? Am I wrong about that? Like, do I not understand what's happening here? Because that part actually, when I read that, went, wait a minute, how does that make any sense?
Right. I don't understand. Like, I don't understand it either way. What exactly are you taking out if this can still happen? Is it some kind of hang up on the language of this still gets put through, or this is like a structure to say, hey, it's not going through, but we can still push it through? Like,
Right.
I don't even really quite understand the difference.
Right. So like this is the part I don't get, and DM me people from the DC government to explain to me how this works. But if the budget is going to be passed in the middle of July, but you take the RFK part out of it, but there's money allocated for the like approval of this, how are you passing the budget and not passing that at the same time? So I'm not really sure what this maneuver is about, if that reporting's true. And I got that off of WTOP, that they were the ones that wrote that they are pulling this thing out. And I'm sure others have the same thing, but that the money. And so one of those two things can't be true. Like to me, one of the doesn't mean that the RFK thing wouldn't happen. What wouldn't make sense, though, is passing a budget that allocates money for the project if they didn't approve the project. So I'm like, I'm lost here. I'm lost. I don't really understand. I've lost the story. Explain to me how that makes sense, because it doesn't to me.
Right. This is why we stick to sports, because I don't understand the difference here, is
It
what I'm
feels
getting at.
like a threat. It feels like something that's going through, but they want something and they're not saying what that is publicly, and they're waiting until we're about to hit the final horn. That reads to me like this is actually happening. They're trying to hold it up for some reason, for somebody. I don't know what it is, because why wouldn't you take all of it out of the budget and the money that would be allocated to approve it if you were serious about not going on the timeline that they're talking about?
Yeah, like I'm wondering what is the hang up here? Like there's clearly something that they don't like, or some kind of, it could be some kind of split. Like, it could be something as simple as when that whole entire thing first came out, that it was the parking garages were under certain control for a certain amount of time. I'm wondering if it's one of those things that's a holdup here, if they're
Yeah, I
concerned
guess.
about that. you know?
I don't understand. I didn't understand that. And maybe somebody who works in the DC government can explain how does that work? Because it either leans one way or the other.
Right.
We're not approving the budget if you're leaving the money in until we approve this. Because how could you approve the budget for what? You could approve a contingency that you would approve $1 billion of taxpayer money to be utilized for something that you haven't approved whether it's happening. So you put that in as what, a contingency, and then if for some reason it didn't happen, you have a surplus. Like, I don't even really. You've got me how that works. So this again reads to me like this is happening, but I don't know. It feels like a game is being played. The mayor was trying to state a week ago, you're playing a game of chicken. Now, I don't know whether that's actually true or not, because she was basically saying the whole deal could be derailed if you don't do it on this timeline. I haven't heard the Commanders publicly state that. And so it's a game of chicken, whether that's the case or not. And they put their money where their mouth is, but they also want to have it in DC. They're not like, we'll do it in either place. We'd be like, they want to do it in DC. They need this. And that feels like the leverage that the council's trying to use for some purpose here over the next couple of weeks, knowing that they don't really want to go to any other jurisdiction, that they want to be here. That said, they're not pulling the levers or publicly stating they don't want to do this. All they're saying is we don't want to do it on this timeline. So this feels like still a game of chicken to me. And it also feels like it's happening, but I'm not sure what the hang up is. And I thought the mayor, like when she basically said, like, we've given you the proposal, you've had it for weeks, you can ask us any question you want. We didn't, this isn't Big Beautiful Bill showed up at 2 a.m. Like, you've had this sitting in front of you. Tell us what your things are about it. And so I still feel like this is happening, but I'm not sure what stage we're in, because that threat felt, or even if it's not a threat, felt very, very like lacking any kind of strength behind it. How would you approve a budget for something that isn't in the budget? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, the only thing I can really think of that they might be tilted about is Harris basically threw out that timeline of, we want to have it done by, what did he say? The fall of 2030, right? Wasn't that the
Yes, they want to open it in 2030. Not only to get it open, to the public, but the Women's World Cup is the following year, and they want to have it so that they can get probably the championship match there.
Right. So I think this is that's the only thing I can think of, is that they could be perturbed because somebody tossed a timeline out there and everyone's like, yep, that sounds good. And maybe they want more time, or they think that's too fast or whatever. That's one of the hangups that I'm just trying to rack my brain of thinking. I don't know if that's actually something, but it could be something that deters them from that. The other thing would be too, as well, do they want to take a little bit more time and, make sure that this is something that makes financial sense to them? I mean, I do know that's something that everyone always has questions on, but what I'll say what I said when, this deal kind of first came through. There's nothing at the site right now. What else were you going to do with it? What is going to be a moneymaker? What is going to get the football team back in the district? Nothing. So I don't know, really what the hang up is here. It's not like this is some redevelopment, of knocking something that's already there down. There's literally nothing there. It's a dilapidated stadium.
The reason why it's in the state that it's in is because the federal government owned the rights to it and refused to work with the city, apparently until Dan Snyder sold the team, if it was going to be a stadium. And I don't even know how badly that council was working with the former ownership to get that happening, but they also couldn't do anything with it. So that's why it's become blight, and it's become an eyesore, and it's become a drain, because they've been spending millions of dollars through the years. I don't even know doing what. It's become a raccoon den. So it's completely useless and unsafe. So it's high time that the DC city government has the capability to do what they want with the land. Clearly, the mayor wants to do the stadium. Again, for months, I've heard council members make cases as to why they need time to vet this. but I've heard very few. There are a couple hardliners who have just said, I don't want a stadium there no matter what. I don't care what the deal is. That's their prerogative and their right to feel that way. The others have kind of straddled this line. I saw this one very long, what I thought was pretty good video put by one of the council members who started and finished with, I want this to happen. And in the middle, tried to give an explanation as to why it's taking more time than they want to actually vet the thing out. So I don't know, guys, do your job. I mean, this is a massive, massive investment project. You can either accept it or not, and you could take the blowback either way. It's your job to make that decision. And the team and the mayor want this process to start now for the reasons that were stated, and they are good reasons. The sooner you get this going, the sooner this thing is built, the sooner there are major world-class events on a calendar that clearly could fall into the stadium. If you decide you don't want it there, well, that's your prerogative, and you can choose to do that. But I don't get this game of chicken right now. I don't. It feels like neither side is particularly strong in the negotiating standpoint. The Commanders want this site. They have other jurisdictions they could go to, but they want this site. Everybody knows it. The mayor wants this to happen. She's already put it in writing. The council probably wants to squeeze out whatever they want, but none of them are actively saying they wouldn't vote for it if push came to shove. So I do feel like we've got the dumbest game of chicken I've ever seen. It feels like this is going to happen unless I hear something that would suggest otherwise from the council. So I guess everybody just keep your heads down. Don't say anything crazy. Let the process play out. And in 20 days, the council's going to show their cards. Are they going to vote for this or not? And they could say it's a standalone bill, but it's not if you don't pull the funding out of the budget. So what are you going to do, guys?
Right.
You going to vote for it or not?
The other side of this, too, is I do think it's a real, I don't want to say threat, but I think it's a real option. Like, Mayor Bowser has kind of shown a sense of urgency of if you guys don't get this done, like they could go somewhere else. And I've kind of jokingly said it. Josh Harris could go to Maryland tomorrow and go, give me a site, and they might have a stadium up within 3 years, right? Like, I'm sure Wes Moore would say, we'll start construction tomorrow, guys, if you want to get a stadium done. So I do think there's a little bit of this factor here too, because I've kind of said this. I think as much as Josh Harris does want, to be playing at RFK and the site is there and everything, if this thing drags out a little bit too long, and I don't think there's any threat of that right now, I think it's in his best interest to get the ball rolling wherever he needs to get it rolling at this point, because you can't just wait around forever for this to get done too. No. And like you kind of think about the state of the franchise right now. He's in year 2 of having a franchise quarterback. By the time that contract rolls around, he wants a shiny new stadium to sell suites and PSLs and club seats and all of that stuff. That's coming down the pipeline if things continue to the way that they're going. He's got to have something in the can ready to go for a new stadium.
Yeah, I think this is going to happen because I do think, even if there's a hang up on the council, I think they've already signaled they know this is a good deal for them.
Right.
The team wants it there for a variety of reasons. And the city, honestly, could host a Super Bowl, have the Women's World Cup final, all the world-class events that occur every single year will end up in this stadium. I don't know why you wouldn't want that. And listen, I'll hear out constituents who believe that money shouldn't go towards the building of these types of venues. They are revenue generators. I hate to break it to you. They are, especially when the vast majority of it is paid for by the entity that, and they won't own this. The city's going to own it, right? Isn't the city going to own this? Like, I don't know. So we'll see what happens. 20 days. And then the rubber meets the road. And then they have to kind of show them what it is, because this is what the deadline was set. And I think we're hearing about this 3 weeks in advance because they want to extract something to vote for it. I just don't know what it is. All right.
The one other thing here too is that what I would say is as well is like the Commanders have done a good job of rehabbing their image of like, look at all the concerts that went to, Northwest Stadium this summer. Like, I think there's been more concerts this summer than maybe since that stadium opened up. Like, AC/DC was there, Metallica was there, Beyonce's coming for 2 nights, Kendrick Lamar was there the other night. Like, this is not just a lighthearted thing too, where there's only going to be 2 to 3 concerts or something. They've started to ramp this up already. There's going to be way more than you think down there. Not to mention, like, don't you want all this stuff happening within the district? we haven't had that in such a long time. I think it's about time that is, happening.
Yep. Let's see. The other thing that happened yesterday was Aaron Rodgers went on McAfee and said, this is likely. He did not say definitively. He said likely this is his last season playing. And I actually thought his reasoning was sound. Okay. It wasn't from Never Never Land or whatever the directions he's gone the last couple of years with discussing topics. He said he's had a great career. He doesn't want it to go out the way that it went out. I'll hear him on that. He's going to a very stable franchise with a very stable coach with a team that, they may win, they may not, but they'll do it in a respectful way. So he's doing it for those reasons. And he said also, I only signed a 1-year deal here. I signed a team-friendly 1-year deal here. So I'm basically telling you that I don't know whether I could have, he's right. He could have extracted more out of them to make the deal come true, whether he wants to play more than 1 year or not. He could have extracted more from money, from length of time, put on those stupid void year things. He had them over a barrel once it got to the spring, and he hadn't signed with them, and there really were no other options for them other than Kirk Cousins and pulling off a trade. That's really it if they wanted a veteran quarterback. So he had them. He did right by them by being honest. When he went on McAfee a couple months ago and said, it's not about the money, I'm like, sure, pal. And then he turned around when he had them leveraged and said, okay, under $20 million deal tops, right? That's as high as it's going to go if we meet everything. So, boy, if things have come full circle, I totally believe him. It came off as totally believable. All the things he said, which, he has said so many things that don't feel believable over the last couple of years. I actually totally believe him on this, that this might be his last year. And I understand the reasons why he wanted to do it there if it wasn't going to be in Minnesota.
It was a little bit of the same energy as, are you vaccinated? And he said, I'm immunized. Remember that? Yes. It was a little bit of that same energy of
I don't blame him for not being definitive about it. Because you don't know. And
sure,
it is,
sure.
He's not coming out of retirement at 43. So
I know.
What if they have a great year in Pittsburgh? And what if they really like each other? And what if he wants to give it another run? He doesn't want to get caught up in but you told us on McAfee in June that this was it. So I believe him. And I actually think he left himself enough wiggle room that if things go really, 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 really well, that he could come back again.
No, I believe him at face value here too. And I think the Jets situation humbled him in a lot of different ways, just in that you look at what he was dealing with when he was in Green Bay. Very stable organization. Yeah. Did he disagree with some of those decisions? Of course. I think every quarterback does. Then there was the breaking point where I think a couple of factors happened at the same time with him. And I kind of went through it on my show yesterday. He started dating Shailene Woodley and started, he won an MVP and all of a sudden was this really kind of pseudo celebrity quarterback. And I think it got to his head a little bit. And then he pulls the move to go to New York. And then he's bringing his friends to play with him. And then all of a sudden he gets hurt. And then it all kind of comes crashing down. And then last year, his head coach gets fired. He went from being in one of the most stable positions to just pure dysfunction in one of the most dysfunctional franchises in the NFL. I think this whole entire kind of offseason and this year is him going, I want one more shot just to play football again, not to get my friends in here, not to be, and as I keep saying, I think Peter Schrager has said it best, I don't have to be the savior here. I just need to play quarterback. I think he wants to just go have one more year where he just gets to go play and he doesn't have to deal with all this outside BS. And he has a head coach that's going to allow all of this too. Tomlin is kind of the perfect foil for him to go, it's your show, not mine. I'm just going to step in line. That's the perfect pairing.
There's an old saying, the grass isn't always greener. And I think he learned that, and he learned it late in his career, and everybody makes choices. I agree. His ego, and he's all but admitted that the last couple of times that he's been on, because he's actually been very quiet this offseason. And the times he has spoken have turned out, he's been honest about what's going on. Like he said, I'm not just stringing the Steelers along. It's not going to be about money. I do have some personal things going on that I actually don't want publicized because he's had his private life be very public, some of it on his own account and some of it not. And he doesn't clearly like that either. And life got weird for him at the end of his football career. And a lot of it was of his own making. And so I do believe that he learned a lesson. And I bet if he's honest, he would say, if I could do this over, I wouldn't have done some of the things that I did. But it's too late now. And everyone makes their choices. And listen, I can relate to this. Like I made some strange decisions at the end of my run at ESPN that ballooned into things that didn't have to balloon into. Whatever. Like I don't regret it now. I'm glad where I am. But I learned hard lessons then too. So I relate to what he's talking about. When you make some career choices that may or may not really be in your best interest, but you kind of don't know it at the time. And then you find out the hard way when you play for the Jets that like things can be rough. And it doesn't mean they can't flip it around or turn it around or be better. And maybe Aaron Glenn and all them will, new life, new lifeblood, all that stuff. Anything could change in the NFL. But he walked into a very difficult situation of his own making. He had a couple of things not go the way as planned. And I think he's been, I hear it from, you can hear it from him. He sounds humbled. And actually, that makes him dangerous. I think it makes him more dangerous now as a player than it did a couple of years ago because he's going to take all this pressure off. It's the NFL and you got to play hard. But I believe the pressure on himself internally to try to prove everything that he did was right is now off and he's free just to be Aaron Rodgers again. Is he good enough to lift them? That's an open question. And I think that's a fair question. And I know the players never want to hear this, but like when we just talk about the football part of it, I don't know that he can be that guy from a few years ago, but I said this when he signed with them at that price. I went, I buy this a little bit because he's clearly put himself in a position to motivate himself to just play and don't worry about the rest of it. And he is in a really good spot for that. It's not a high profile place, but an extremely stable place with an extremely stable coach with a team that I know everyone makes fun of them for going 9-8 every year, but guess who doesn't? The Jets don't go 9-8 every year. Most teams don't go 9-8 every year, right? That is more of an accomplishment that it gets credit for. I think he makes them better. I don't think he makes them good enough, not in that division, but I think he makes them better. And they very easily could be a second place team in that division if the Bengals defense sucks. Like they could very easily be a second. So I buy this. I buy what he's saying. I think he's been humbled to whatever degree he can be humbled. And I do believe that this last ride, he's going to put his all into it. I actually believe that.
I think the difference here too is, I've mentioned this before, is he's just going to go there and play quarterback. He doesn't have to be the face of the franchise. He doesn't have to turn a terrible franchise around within 2 years or whatever, where the Jets, hyped him up to be the savior. He doesn't have to do that there, to be plain and simple. And what I'll say is this too, with him saying that it could be the last year, he did get married this offseason. Like he let that slip, 3 weeks ago when he did that initial press conference. Like that also tells me that like he does know that the end is near here. Like I don't think that dude gets married unless he knows he's on the way out of, till the end of his career. Like that's a life decision there. Say whatever you want to say about it. But I think for him, that's him going, I got 1 year probably left here. And then I'm going to go start living life a little bit more.
One more thing he said, which was, you're not going to hear from me after I retire. This is it. He's telling Pat, this is the goodbye tour. All right. I'm not going to do this anymore. I half believe it because we don't know who he married, which think about his private life over the last 5-6 years. And we know everything about the girlfriends. They've been part of his public life. We've made fun of a lot of them when they are celestial beings, because he's gone through the whole gamut. But here he is married, we think, but nobody knows to who. So so he's been able to kind of get back inside and be private again. So when he says this, I believe him. I don't think he likes the fame that much, or maybe he did for a while, but he didn't like what is the pushback of fame, especially if you do things that are perceived as, not in line with mainstream thought, which he clearly is not someone that is in line with mainstream thought. And that's fine. It's like free country. You're allowed to believe what you want to believe. He got a lot of pushback for all of that. I would think that he is someone that the networks would look at because he's terrific, really, on television when he does these interviews. However, they're probably scared of him because he might derail broadcasts that are supposed to be about football into other things as news warrants. And that's the last thing that any of the networks are going to want, is have controversies with their broadcaster because they bring up a war in Iran or COVID vaccines or whatever is on his mind when we're watching the Browns play the Titans, because that's just the last thing that they want. But so I half believe him. And then there's this big part of me that goes, he's going to get the itch to want to be famous again, because he so desperately goes on all these different podcasts all the time that I don't know if I totally believe him that he's going to go dark. But I do think this has been an interesting introspective year for him. He goes and gets married privately, so nobody even knows who it is. He said, I'm not going to take a lot of money. I'm not stringing anybody along. He had strung people along before. He's not doing that any longer. I buy this, that like whatever he's come around to the last few years have been a life experience for him, that no darkness retreat is going to help him figure out. He had to live it to understand it. And I'll go back to, I bet if he could do a couple things over, he probably would. And he's had a great learning experience. It doesn't change the fact that he's a Hall of Fame player. Let's see what he does this year, and let's see what he does after.
I believe him mainly just because I think he knows it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. If you talk, like, say whatever you want to say about his opinions when he went on Rogan or McAfee and said whatever you want. The fact of the matter is that he is an enigmatic person. And so people have opinions on him. And I actually go back to not really him being guest on shows. I go back to how his family talks about him. He basically abandoned his family. He doesn't talk to them. Like, that's become a story here where he basically broke off and doesn't talk to him. I think he likes to be isolated. Like, I think he likes to be, I think he likes to be in the spotlight on his own terms. And if he can't be on his own terms, he'd happily just pull out of the whole entire thing. And I think that's where he's landing here. And let's be honest here, that probably lasts for like 2 to 3 years. And then if he does get the itch, he'll pop back up. Somebody will hire him to either be on shows or be an analyst or whatever. I think it's more, how long will it last?
Yeah,
I believe him that he's going to go dark for a couple years. It's, does he get the itch again? And that could go either way, honestly. I could see him honestly staying in the dark, but I could also see him go, we got a big guest on McAfee today. Rodgers is back for the first time in 3 years or something like that. So, yeah.
I agree. All right, let me take a quick break. Bram wants to show ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. This is a very interesting story that's come out from Pablo Torre and Mike Florio, who got through probably FOIA a lot of documents about a court case that was about collusion in the NFL over the guaranteed or fully guaranteed portions of contracts. Contracts in the NFL have, not for everybody, for a number of people, have started to go in this direction where more and more and more guaranteed money is being divvied out, specifically to rookies. If you've noticed now, a lot of the rookies in their first deals, because they are so cap friendly, the teams are willing to make a lot of it guaranteed now, which was never the case. The only thing that used to be guaranteed was the signing bonus. Now you're hearing a lot of players are getting the majority of the first, 3-4 years of the contract to be guaranteed now. So it's going that way, but that's a different situation than what they're talking about, which really goes back to a few years ago. And Pablo Torre and Mike Florio were able to basically report out that there were owners in a case that were either emailed or texted one another that talked about major contracts that they had dealt with, and mainly with quarterbacks, because that's where the real crazy guaranteed money is. And it stems off of Deshaun Watson. Kyler Murray's contract apparently came up in some of the reporting I saw. The Lamar Jackson one, which I'll get to in a second, obviously came up. There is like a mention from JC Tretter, who's the players union rep president of the PA, for the players who called Russell Wilson a wuss because he didn't follow through with getting as much guaranteed money as he could get. And then, like, the joke is that's what everybody's calling him anyway. So what's the difference now? I will say this about this, because those two, Pablo and Florio, went on this like media outrage, like campaign going, why aren't the major outlets covering this? Because this is a major story, of which I would say, I don't think it actually is, which is like, yes, it deserves coverage. And yes, I totally agree with the journalists like them doing what they did to find out what's going on. I'm all for more light, less dark, more light. I come from an ethos of journalism. So I fully agree with them that this is worthwhile and of the endeavor to do it. But I would just say this, I don't think it's a big deal, because players are getting guaranteed contracts. So if there was a collusion going on to stop it from happening, why is it happening? So not every owner wants to do it. Not every owner, I'm sure most owners don't want to do it at all. Others do it, which means it's not a collusive effort by all of the teams to not ever give these contracts out. They do. So just because they talked amongst themselves about some of the deals that are going on does not mean that they are colluding to ensure that nobody gets guaranteed contracts, because the proof is there are players getting guaranteed contracts. So I just didn't find this to be as big of an unearthing as they thought it was. At the same time, I'm not trying to dismiss it. And I never want to tell really great journalists, like they are, to ever stop doing what they're doing. I just don't think they think they landed a bombshell, and I don't think they did. That's all.
I think what they're trying to do, though, is drum it up, though, that you look at the NFL, how much money they're making now, right? Like, the TV deals are absurd. We're starting to have games now on a million different platforms, Peacock, Netflix, Amazon Prime is the Thursday game. I think what they're getting at is quarterback is the most important position in the sport, maybe in all of sports, honestly. It's arguable. And here's the owners that have a salary cap that are making so much more money than the players are making. And even they are drawing their line in the sand of, this is the most important position, and we don't even want to guarantee that, contract. And
well, nobody wants to guarantee money because the propensity of injury is so high. That's why nobody wants to guarantee money. And that's what it's about. Like that's not a collusive effort. That's reality. They're in car wrecks every Sunday.
Sure. I mean, but like, there's insurance policies you can take out for that stuff. Teams do it all the time, right? So there's, ways to protect yourself from that. What I think they're getting at here, though, is I think everyone was barking up the right tree a couple of years ago with Lamar, and they finally uncovered that it was exactly that. That basically the owners were holding the line on Lamar, that they were not going to give him that guaranteed contract, because that's what it sounded like to me, was that I think teams would have jumped at it, but everyone knew you don't want to give him that guaranteed contract, because then that sets the precedent for every quarterback from here on out. I think that's where I was thinking on it.
But not wanting to do it, and some teams doing it, disproves that they're all colluding against it. Deshaun Watson getting that contract, pissed everybody off. Like, especially amid the circumstances by which he got it. Like, sure, it's one thing to give Pat Mahomes a fully guaranteed contract at this state of his career, or Josh Allen a fully guaranteed contract, but to give him that contract amid what was going on,
right?
Which we all know was the only reason why they got him there was because they gave him the money that that Atlanta or New Orleans, wherever else he wanted to go, wouldn't give him, right? But it proves that there is no collusive effort for it to not happen, because someone did it. The owners may not have liked that he did it, but they did do it. In Lamar's case, because we were front and center for this, because everyone was talking about us getting him, I knew we were never getting him. I remember at the time we were never getting him, because the part that's lost in all of this is, if you make an offer, you have to make the cap room for the offer. It's a large offer. And if Baltimore matches it, which they could have at any point in time, you'd lose the people that you cut to make the room to do it. It was never happening. And this is why I don't think it was collusion. I think it was the other teams going, He's not going to get moved. They're not going to let him get moved. The only thing that could happen here is they end up signing a contract they don't want to sign, and we're going to be the pawn in it. That's it. And like, there are plenty of teams that I'm sure wanted Lamar Jackson, but you have to play a game to get him under those scenarios. You have a problem with all this. Get rid of the franchise tag stuff. If that's what you really, if the players really have a problem with all of this, if that didn't exist, then you better believe the players, especially the quarterbacks, would be in a very different position when they come up for their contracts, and they'd be able to get a lot more of what they want. Secondarily, like, if there was collusion, explain Kirk Cousins to me, how he keeps getting fully guaranteed contracts everywhere he goes, and no one thinks he's the best quarterback in the NFL, never has been, never will be. He's a very good player who somehow has gotten multiple fully guaranteed contracts from 2 different organizations. So I appreciate what they did. I just don't think it's as big of a revelation as they were hoping everybody would think that it was.
The difference, though, is that Kirk is a top 10 quarterback at best. So the guaranteed money still isn't the number that Lamar was going to get.
Sure.
I think that's what they're trying to get at here. You're saying that there's guaranteed contracts on rookie deals. Yeah, those rookie deals are worth like $30 million total.
Correct.
Right? So like, I think owners are going, yeah, of course, pal. We'll give you that fully guaranteed, because to them, it's a small investment and it makes everybody happy. I think what they were getting at is they didn't want Lamar to get that fully guaranteed contract to be making $60 million guaranteed every year, and then every single quarterback therein after gets that too. Then Mahomes gets to step up and go, I want $60 million. Dak would have stepped up and said, I get 65 guaranteed or whatever. Or I now, looking at what happened here, look at the quarterback class from last year that just came out. All 5 of those guys could hold the line in 4 years and go, none of us are signing until we get guaranteed contracts. Like, I think that's a real possibility. Caleb, Jaden, Drake May, Bo Nix, Penix could all go, none of us are going to sign until one of us gets a fully guaranteed contract, and then we'll all sign. Like, that could happen.
The last thing I want to say about this, like, I'm not against the players. I hope they get whatever they want. I think there are examples of fully guaranteed contracts being given out. Like, when Kirk got his, it was market value at the time. It seems small now, but like, it was at the time. There is a reason also, the way that the structure of the cap works in the NFL, it is not good for the team to have that much money stuck in guaranteed money for them to put a team around a player. They want the flexibility. So oftentimes what ends up happening with someone like Dak is they just move the money around.
Right.
Like, it may not be guaranteed. They're moving it around to keep a competitive team around him. So I think that that's lost in this discussion too. The system isn't broken, but it's being manipulated because of the rising salaries and because of some of these guarantees. Teams are now using void years to like get out of paying all this money. It's complicated. The accounting of it's become complicated. I don't think that there's necessarily a total, like, do they want to give guaranteed money? No, of course they don't. What company does? Like, nobody does, right? But they're realizing they're fighting an uphill battle that they're not going to win. And they're trying to find what is, I would think, like, creative accounting methodology to get around some of these ballooning contracts. And that's not a controversy. That's just the reality of keeping your team competitive when you have one player making $60-70 million or whatever Jaden's going to make in 3-4 years. I don't know what that number is going to be. All right, I want to talk about Jordan Poole in a minute, so let me take a quick break. Very much the show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. It's draft night in the NBA. Wizards pick 6. I'll talk about that in a minute. Preemptively, they've made another major deal. Jordan Poole, thank you for your service. He has been sent to New Orleans. In return, they get a couple of expiring contracts of mid-30-year-old players, Kelly Olynyk, CJ McCollum, a couple of draft swaps that occurred. This is obviously, Poole is not part of their future. He makes a lot of money for a couple more years. They now have, I would think, semi-tradable part in McCollum for sure, if that's the direction they go. If not, then they've got 4 prominent veteran players, all in their 30s, that are all going to be off of their books by next year. And come next year, this is where the Wizards are going to make their first real move with the young people that they have. They're going to have over $100 million in cap space unless they make a corresponding move with a younger player making a lot of money amid all of this. We don't know what they're going to do, but we're all assuming that they're building around Sar, Koulibaly, Bub, whoever the 6th overall pick is going to be, a couple of the other first rounders they got a year ago, and they've got a big pile of money to go throw at somebody else now. So what do you think of the plan?
Fine, I guess. Like, I think Jordan Poole was not ever going to be a part of the future here. So I think it was fine to move along from him. You now have Olynyk, McCollum, and Chris Middleton. He picked up his option earlier this week. So that's 3 veterans that you're going to have that you could either
Smart too. It's another one.
Smart too, that you can move at the deadline or whatever you got to do with them. I think it just gives them flexibility. My question is, who wants to come here next year? I mean, that's just my question of they'd have to figure that out because this hasn't been an organization, moving forward that, people really want to come play for. What I will say is this is moving Poole out is just as important to, move on from him and get him off the books as to let some of the young guys get some minutes too. I think that's the other part of this as well, is that they're basically saying, Jordan Poole, thank you for your service. We want to go young next year. To me, that's the best part of this plan, is that you're going to have younger guys fill in those minutes. I'm completely okay with that.
Now, on the tradable parts thing, they have 4 of them now. Olynyk probably less than the other 3, but there are probably contenders that would look at Middleton, Smart, and McCollum and go, all right, especially if an injury pops up, that this is somebody that's tradable. Remember, you can't just trade them for picks. Like, it's a different sport.
Right.
So you've got to take something back to make those things happen, which makes them very difficult to accomplish. So I feel there are buyout candidates here at some point. Smart and McCollum and Middleton for sure. And then, if there is some kind of trade that doesn't hinder their cap space and put somebody who's not on their timeline on the team, then I guess it will happen. But I feel like we're just going to kind of crawl to 2026 now. They'll have this group that they have, including whatever happens tonight, and we'll see what it looks like when they have these giant hole in their cap and a lot of roster spots open. Is there somebody that they're eyeing now that they know might be available? Is there a trade for a veteran that will involve one of these young players to somebody else? Because, look what Phoenix is doing right now. Look what the Celtics are doing right now. I actually think what the Celtics are doing are very smart off of the Tatum injury to get financially their shop in order. They're probably not going to be the same team next year because Tatum's going to miss almost the whole season. Get out of players that aren't going to be here in a couple of years. I think what they're doing, I think, is very tough pill to swallow, but it actually feels very smart as they kind of take this, what is going to be a gap year for them to get hopefully Tatum back, and then they'll see on the other side. For the Wizards, I'm with you. They have yet to ever lure a major free agent here, I guess Gilbert would count as that, but at the time, nobody knew how good Gilbert was. I guess the Wizards do. I want to give them credit. They did, but no, it wasn't like this isn't Kobe Bryant in his prime going, you know what? I want to go play for the Wizards now. I'm taking my talents to U Street. We haven't gotten that one yet. So they have a lot of money to spend. I guess we just have to wait a year to see how they spend it.
The other side of this too, that no one really wants to hear, is that cap space does open them up, that if somebody wants to do the old, we'll give you our first round pick with this bad contract, do you want to take it on? That also leaves the Wizards open for business for doing something like that too. No one wants to hear that, but it's very hard to get first round picks now. That's the good and the bad thing about OKC being as good as they are. Now everybody hoards their first round picks. They don't ever want to move them for anything. One of the ways you can get them, though, is by taking on bad terms and bad contracts. That could be a way that they do this as well. So, as much as I want to say somebody will come in next year, they could also just be using it for asset management to bring on a bad, contract or two.
I wanted to talk about Ace Bailey, who might be the Wizards' pick tonight, and how he's orchestrating everything to avoid being picked by the teams he doesn't want to be picked by, and how just brazen and openly brazen that it is. But I kind of ran out of time. And so if he is the pick, because that's what all the mock drafts have him going to Washington, because he's been orchestrating his way out away from Philadelphia and a couple of the other teams ahead of him, even though most of the draft experts said he would go probably 3 overall. He's not being picked there by all the mock drafts because he's basically telling them, I don't want to go there. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but we know what's going on publicly. So if he does get picked, I'll talk about this tomorrow, because there were a lot of quotes that were like, whoa, like even Paul George. I saw Paul George on his podcast say something like, dude, like, I don't know who you think you are, basically. Like, you need to get in here first. Or maybe this is the old man going, I wish I did that. Like, who knows?
Could be.
We'll see. All right, we'll see what happens tonight. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Bram Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.